Hello, and welcome back to Just Be Gaming, where we're breaking down the Seeker Sunforge cards. So we just finished doing all the cards in the last video. We did all the legendary cards, so we finished the card pool. So this one's going to probably be a much shorter one, because I'm just going to cover the basic attacks of the Seeker. And these aren't cards that you generally will be drafting necessarily. So, in case you don't know, when you start the Sunforge, you have to choose a basic attack. One of three basic attacks, and you can re-roll them if you so desire, but I really don't find there generally to be a reason to re-roll the basic attack. It just doesn't seem like a good use of your re-roll. Generally, when I run Sunforge and I choose my basic attack, I try to build around that card. As like I said before, one of the pillars of the Sunforge, in my opinion, is synergy. So being able to synergize your basic attack with the rest of your deck is not necessarily super important, but it's a little bit important. Not all basic attacks are built the same in the Sunforge, unfortunately. Rarely will there be a basic attack that is a must pick, so this section will be a lot more like a regular tier list. There are some weapons in the weapon pool, the basic attack pool, that are must picks, and we'll get there. Like not just for the Seeker, but for like every hero, pretty much. So we'll get there. But first, we'll start off with our good buddy Chakram. So Chakram, for 1 energy, deal 3 damage, and summon a clone at the end of your turn. So this is a solid basic attack that gets much better with other clone generating cards. It's still good on its own, especially because you don't have to save an energy to channel your clones. So what I mean by that, you still, if you have other clones created, you will need an energy to keep those clones going. But if you have no clones and you play Chakram, what happens is you summon a clone at the end of your turn. If you have no energy, for whatever reason, I don't know why, whatever, I'm sure there's a mechanical reason for it to be this way. But when you finish your turn, the buff that you get, or the blessing you get, or whatever it's called, I don't know exactly what it's called because it's not really a blessing, but the buff that you get from Chakram, it doesn't take off the clones when your turn is over. I'm not entirely sure why it works that way, but it's pretty cool. So say you have like 10 clones already, and you play a Chakram, and then it uses all your clones to do like more Chakram basic attacks. Now all those basic attacks have turned into Chakram charges that will summon a clone at the end of your turn. And though then at the end of your turn, that Chakram charge turns into clones and they don't fall off. I don't know if I'm explaining this properly, but it's pretty good. It's a pretty cool mechanic that will save you your clones if you've realized, oh no, I've accidentally spent all my energy. But with that said, the clones are still subject to being removed when you're attacked, unless of course you have the advanced cloning talent. But this is still a very solid basic attack. I'll put this in the B tier. My bad. I accidentally forgot to put the picture of Dragon Raps there, but we're back. Okay, so Dragon Raps, the next one. For 1 energy, deal, I believe it's a base 1 damage twice. So really it's dealing 2 damage. At the start of your turn, add 2 damage, and it's persistent like every other dragon card. So this is a great basic attack, and it can single-handedly win you runs if you can delay and mitigate damage to allow the damage on the Dragon Raps to ramp up. There is a very specific reason why so many of the top Seeker decks in story mode run Dragon Raps. If you look at like the Hall of Fame or the different types of builds people have posted to Blightbane, you'll notice a lot of the highest a lot of the best decks use Dragon Raps, and that's because They're probably one of Seeker's best basic attacks, if not the best basic attack, which is why it is so good. You don't always want to pick it though, because you don't always want to have to build around dragon wraps, because having your basic attack stay in your hand and building around dragon cards is kind of like not a very specific thing. You don't always want to do it. And personally, I don't, because I've used them so much that make it a little bit easier. Not always, but they can make it a little bit easier. For me, it's easily an A tier, which is like on this tier list. It's A might as well be S. I probably should have maybe put it that way for the weapon specifically, or the basic attack specifically, but it's very good. Probably one of the best Seeker weapons available. Next, we have Knuckles. So for 1 energy, deal 2 damage, and it has Cascade. Conjure a free copy of this card. So in case you don't know what Cascade does, if you play a card that costs no energy, or a card that costs 2 energy, and then you play Knuckles, you will get the Cascade effect. So why Knuckles are good, because they kind of steamroll off of each other. You can play a Knuckles, it'll conjure a free copy. You play the free copy, you can play another Knuckles that costs 1 energy, and you can keep doing that. In the story mode, it's really good. And these can be pretty good in the Sunforge too, but having only 2 in your deck and not copying them is where Knuckles will have their downfall, and where they kind of fall off. So for me, Knuckles and the Sunforge are more of a C tier weapon, basic attack. They still have the obvious, really nice synergy with, I forget that enchantment. The enchantment that increases your basic attack based on the focus. This one, centered strikes, is it? Or centered mind, something like that. I forget the name. But anyway. Next, we have Moonclaws. Moonclaws, 1 energy. Deal 2 damage, and this swaps when drawn based on your current form. So there are different forms of Moonclaws based on the form you're in. So if you're in form of the bear, and you draw this, it'll turn into bear claws. If you're in cat form, these will turn into cat claws when you draw them. If you're in raven form, they'll turn into raven claws. If you're in dragon form, they'll turn into dragon claws. And they all do different things. So I guess we can take a look at what they do, because they all do different things, and they're all pretty decent in their own right. So the bear claws. If you play bear claws, it costs 1 energy. They all cost 1 energy. You'll deal 3 damage, and you gain armor equal to the damage dealt, and that scales with upgrades. A pretty good one. Cat claws. This is the damaging one. For 1 energy, deal 3 damage and inflict 3 bleeding. So you can, if you play enough cat claws, you can really ramp up the bleeding and really inflict a lot of hurt. And the dragon claws are really good too. Dragon claws are very, very strong. For 1 energy, deal 3 damage and draw a card. So that's really, really nice. And also the raven claws for the last but not least. Raven claws. For 1 energy, deal 2 damage twice and gain 1 focus. Plays really nicely in with the raven's ability to generate a lot of focus. But it's really unfortunate that the Moonclaws they're not great in the Sunforge. Taking these in no way guarantees that you will find a form card. So if you take these and you don't find a form card, they're pretty weak. Even if you do get a form card, they still aren't necessarily that great. With dragon form, they can be good since they do give you that card draw, as I said. But where these get hit really hard is with talents. So for instance, with Endless Arsenal, if you are in a form, the Moonclaws will change to that form when they're drawn, right? However, it will not be free, and it will cost 1 energy. So what Endless Arsenal does, if you don't know, at the start of your turn, you will conjure a free basic attack. So what happens is it will conjure the Moon Claws, but if you're in form, then it swaps like it's supposed to. You will conjure a free Moon Claw, and then that essentially acts as if it was drawn, and then it swaps to whatever form you're in. So say your form of the dragon, you'll conjure the free Moonclaw, but then it swaps to Dragon Claws, but it doesn't retain the free cost. It will turn into a 1 cost basic attack. So this kind of really hurts, because if you find this talent a lot of the time, it can be a really awesome talent to get with a lot of other basic attacks. And I actually really like the talent because it has a lot of fun synergies that you can do with basic attacks. But taking this talent really is kind of like it's not a counter synergy, because you still get a lot more basic attacks, but they're not free basic attacks. That's the whole reason you want that talent, is for the free basic attack. So really, the Moonclaws aren't the best, because you really need a form, and if you don't have a form, if you don't end up getting a form, you're just stuck with these pretty lackluster, just 2 damage dealing basic attacks. And for that reason, they're a D tier, which is sad, because I love druid type builds in games, as I've already stated. Next, we have Quarterstaff. So for 1 energy, deal 2 damage, and on hit, all quarterstaffs will deal 2 more damage. So this is a great basic attack because it scales pretty nicely. They consistently deal more damage the more times you play them. They benefit hugely from clones. Having each cloned attack increases the damage of all your quarterstaffs. So it's a really, really great basic attack to build around if you draft it. Because, like I said, building a clone deck with basic attacks is really, really strong. And it scales very, very hard, very quickly, very easily, specifically with clones. For that reason alone, it's easily an A tier weapon, in my opinion. Next, we have Seer's Orb. So for 1 energy, inflict 3 doom. When foretold, increase the doom inflicted by 3 and inflict 3 doom. Oh, and inflict that amount of doom. So on its own, this card is not good. It's pretty hot garbage. It's not great. But getting foretell cards to build around this card gives it almost endless scalability. If you choose Seer's Orb, you want to take most, if not all, the foretell cards you can get. If you can build around it, this card can easily be an A, but if you get unlucky in the draft and you only find a couple of foretell cards, it's really weak. It's a really weak card that cannot be upgraded at all, and it will only ever do 3 doom damage, which, like I've said before, is easily mitigated by your enemy, and you'll end up dealing no damage with this weapon. So what it does is, if you foretell it, it increases the doom damage, but you don't even have to play it for it to apply the doom. If you foretell it, it will increase the doom and apply that doom to the enemy. It's a really strong weapon if you can get foretell, but if you don't get foretell, it's just absolutely dreadful, and because of that, it's a D tier. Next, we have Shamshir. For 1 energy, deal 3 damage. If you're agile, add 2 damage and attack again. And it has ambush, which gains you evasion, so it will help you trigger that agile for maybe next turn if you draw another Shamshir. This basic attack is simply amazing. I don't know what else to say. It works on itself by giving it evasion and agile. If you give it reliable, it's just completely busted. I don't think agile works with reliable, but the fact that the ambush does, and you can gain evasion no matter when you play this card, if it's reliable, It does everything you want. It gives you damage mitigation. It can do incredible damage thanks to its agile ability, which will essentially make it deal what, like 10 damage, because it'll be five damage twice. And if you upgrade it, it's even more damage. This is honestly a really hard card, like a hard basic attack not to pick when it shows up. And you kind of, the only time you probably won't pick it if you want to play a secret deck is because you know it's going to be too good and you want more of a challenge. Like, this is kind of an almost always pick basic attack because it's really, really good. Last we have the Shuriken. For 1 energy, play, and if you play or discard this card, it will deal 2 damage. So it's cool. You don't even have to play it for it to do the damage. But it's not great. I've tried and I've tried and I've tried to build this into a good deck in the Sunforge. Granted, when I do it, it's usually most of the time not using rerolls, so maybe I'd have better luck using rerolls. I'm sure you can make it work really well if you're using rerolls to ensure that you get those money cards that you want to make this shine, like Illusionary Arms or other good discard cards. But the issue with this card is that you need more than 2 to really make it shine. And you pretty much need Illusionary Arms, Burst of Karma, and all those other discard cards to get the most value out of this. It's not one of my favored cards to get, honestly. It's just not my favorite. It's just not my favorite card. And because of that, it is D tier. Next, I think I said last, but actually the last but not least is Triglaves. So Triglaves for 1 energy, deal 3 damage, gain 1 momentum, and it's free while you have 3 or more momentum. This basic attack doesn't sound so good on the surface, honestly. On the surface it probably doesn't sound so good, but it is actually amazing, especially if you're able to build a lot of momentum. If you're able to build a lot of momentum cards in your draft, it is easily amazing. And if you have like Quicksand to get even more momentum, I don't know exactly where to rank this because you do kind of need other cards to really make it shine. But even if you're playing Surge of Dexterities, you're still going to get that momentum. It's still going to make Triglaves free. You're still going to get card draw with it. It's really good with Vitality or Vitalize. There's so many synergies with Triglave and with is it Momentous Recovery? I think it's Momentous Recovery. That talent alone with this card will win you games. This one is honestly probably more of an A tier, but for me, because I am biased, I'm putting this in an almost always pick. It should be A tier. Realistically, this should be A tier. I'm gonna be upfront and real with you. It should be A tier. But for me, because I am biased and I really like this weapon and I really like momentum, and if you get Momentous Recovery, you are so happy you picked this weapon. This is an almost always pick for me. Especially if you're using rerolls and you want to like reroll your first talent to make sure you get Momentous Recovery, you will be laughing with this card in Momentous Recovery because you will heal for just so much. But like I said, this one's going to be a shorter one because I'm only doing the basic attacks. There's only a handful of basic attacks. And really, there's only like so much to say about them. But yeah, so that was the Seeker's basic attacks for the Sunforge. This is my tier list for it. I'll post this tier list as well. And share your thoughts because maybe you have different ways to play with these basic attacks than I do. Maybe you thought of better synergies than I have. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. I think I'm going to be covering Rogue next. The Rogue card pool next. All right. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you in the next one.